This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to In or Out, a rapid-fire game where we discuss a handful of NBA topics and determine where we stand. On today's episode, Jackson Flickinger is here to discuss the Cavs shamelessly tanking the final game of the season, and we're going to deliver a quick prediction for the upcoming Orlando Magic series. Now, we're going to do a more in-depth preview throughout the week. We're going to have lots of different content coming out, but for today, we're going to jump right into this and keep it simple, starting off with an atrocious end to the regular season. Let's just start right here. Jackson, are you in or out on the Cavs' decision to throw yesterday's game?
I'm out on it just because of how shameless it was and how I feel like that's the move that you make when you're scared. And I understand not wanting to play Miami and Philadelphia in the first round because nobody should want to play them when the alternative is two inexperienced teams in Indiana and Orlando. But what I don't like is that it kind of signals that the Cavs, their whole goal is winning the first round because you really don't really have that much of a chance of getting to the to the third round. If you're going to have to go through Boston, if you would have got the second or third seed, you would have had to go through a team like Milwaukee or New York, which is much more beatable than the Celtics. And you also, at the same time, you're giving the Celtics another chance to lose a round against a better opponent than whoever they're probably going to play in the first round. So I just think that it really screams that this team's whole goal is just to get past the first round, which I don't think is a good goal because you didn't trade all those first round picks. You didn't trade for Donovan Mitchell just to say, hey, we got past the first round. We won a playoff series without LeBron. The goal should be to do more than that and to be a serious contender. And whether or not they could be a serious contender this year is clearly up for debate. But this signals that internally they know that they're not a serious contender and they just want to get past the first round.
I definitely see the argument there, and I personally just want to see them get past the first round. Now, of course, the organization and the players should have higher goals than that. I think we agree on that. Right. But as a fan, as a media member, I just want to see them get past the first round. Mainly, there's more to it than just that. But I will say, if we are really breaking it down, like just hypothetical, let's say, and the bracket didn't break this way anyway, but let's say it would have been you face Philly in the first round, New York in the second, and then you have to face Boston in the conference finals anyway. I think that's a more difficult bracket than Orlando in the first round, Boston in the second, and then New York, just because of that first round matchup. Now, obviously, this is a silly hypothetical. It didn't break that way anyways, and that's why you don't throw a game, because you just don't know. There was no guarantee that it was going to work out for them. I would say, I guess they just played it safe and said, you know what, we're not going to risk any injuries. That was a decision that happened at the start of the game. And that makes sense. Getting healthy for Donovan Mitchell makes sense. You didn't need to play him in that one. Go ahead.
I hate when they try to use that as like we don't want to get guys injured. Well, they still played Allen and Mobley. Yeah. If you really didn't want to get guys injured, don't play anybody. You know.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that.
Yeah, like make Marcus Morris play 48 minutes if you're like really concerned, but you can tell they were looking at the scores and trying to manipulate it because it's like, well, if we want to keep going, we have the option to do so. Even though they did kind of say post game that, because I asked Max Strus about this because JB said pregame, he's like, it's business as usual. We have the guys, we're going to play the game, and then obviously that didn't happen because usually you don't close with the worst possible lineup you can construct. But then I asked Max after the game, like, was it always your plan? Was it always the plan for you to play three quarters? And he was like, yeah, I wanted to keep playing, and I said I want to keep playing, but that was the plan. So it seems like they wanted to lose this or at least put themselves in a position where they could lose this from the jump, which I don't know if that's better or worse.
Yeah, I think there was a quote, maybe it wasn't from JB, but I thought someone said that the plan was, maybe he said it at post game is what you're saying, that the plan was for them to play about 20 minutes. They weren't going to get over 30. And so, anyways, back to where I was going with this. Not playing Donovan Mitchell in this game makes complete sense. Regardless of anything else, like get him healthy. I would even say the same for Darius, just because he's been banged up. Although ideally you want to have everyone available for this last game, just because they haven't had many reps together. So like it would have been nice to get some extra reps there, but I wasn't mad at them resting Donovan Mitchell, especially because, and I mean, you see what happened to the Knicks. It's like, hey, you go all out, you win the game. Congrats. Your first round series is probably Philadelphia, maybe Miami. That kind of sucks. You played hard and you got rewarded with a harder matchup. One thing that I want to say, just to give credit to some of the players, like this wasn't the players going out and trying to lose. This was an organizational decision or a coaching decision. They didn't try and lose for 48 minutes. It really wasn't a throw until that closing lineup where, shout out to the Nance family for taking part in two of the worst Cavs lineups to ever grace a basketball floor. Pete Nance next to, who was it? Damian Jones, Tristan Thompson, and
Isaiah Mobley.
Emoni
Bates.
And then Emoni Bates running point guard. Let's go. And then, of course, Larry Nance Jr. graced the floor with Thon Maker, JaVale McGee, Andre Drummond. It's just the Nance family really has a way of cementing themselves into Cavs history.
If you want to lose a game, throw a Nance out there. Is that what you're saying?
Who said nepotism can't get you anywhere? Okay.
I actually feel really bad for like Isaiah and Emoni because, well, really for Emoni because like I saw people online, really critical of his game, and there's a reason why he's not in the rotation now. But also, could you imagine a worst possible situation for him to be in?
He was set up for failure.
Yeah, that was you can't take anything serious from the fourth quarter if you're going to evaluate Bates, because that was just bad,
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't have used that to evaluate him. The last thing that I want to say here, as far as the Cavs throwing the game, I do think Craig Porter Jr. getting injured changed the outlook of this because, again, we just mentioned that horrific lineup at the end. I'd have to imagine Craig is out there in the closing lineup, and maybe with a functional point guard, they end up holding on to the lead because they were leading for a majority of that game.
Right.
I think they had a 13-point lead in the fourth quarter. And to me, it just looked like, I think it was a situation where they just looked at the other scorers across the league. They had already shut down their key players and said, hey, we don't really have it. Like even Sam Merrill wasn't available to them. So they said, hey, we're going to throw out this horrible lineup. If we blow the lead, maybe it ends up benefiting us. Personally, I would never have advocated for throwing the game. I will say the end result of getting Orlando is favorable compared to possibly getting Philadelphia or Miami. Now, again, it didn't break that way. It would have been better if they just played the game of basketball. You would have drawn Indiana in the first round, who I would say is a preferable matchup. And you would have avoided Boston.
Much better.
Yeah. So it backfired on them very quickly.
Do you know?
Go ahead.
Do you know what that 5-man unit, what their total what the score was when they were playing?
The bad lineup.
Yeah, the tanking lineup. What they got outscored 18-2 in 6 minutes.
I'm surprised they scored.
Yeah,
I didn't see that. I didn't see that bucket there.
I need to go back and
blinked.
It might have been a garbage time one, but either way, 18-2 is really that was the game right there. That's really tough.
That was it. That's why I said
it's not
like they went out there. It's not like they went out there for 48 minutes trying to lose. They were just the last 6 minutes. They
were up 13. I think they were up 13 when they took Isaac Okoro out. So in the fourth quarter. I
just figured we had to say our piece about that because this has set Cavs Twitter ablaze. I haven't seen this many. I mean, everyone's coming out the woodworks to argue about it. Listen, at the end of the day, was it egregious? Yes.
Yes.
Are we okay where we are? Where we drew the magic. It's okay. Let's move on. Let's get ready to rumble because here's the thing. And I do agree with this. You better win that Magic series now. You called out your opponent. It's time to show up. And let's talk about that right now because the result of dropping that game is the Cavs are set for another 4-5 matchup. This time it will be the Orlando Magic, who posed some of the same obstacles that New York did a year ago, although very different teams. But We're going to do a handful of segments throughout the week. We're going to preview the series. We're going to do in-depth breakdown. So subscribe, keep an eye out for that. But today I want to keep it short, and I figured let's just get it out there. Let's make our predictions and set the tone right away. Jackson, are you in or out on Cleveland winning this matchup, and how many games will it take?
I am out on making predictions about the Cavs in the playoffs. That's the last thing I want to do after saying Cavs in 5 against the Knicks.
You got one.
I'm going to go
right.
I did get the games right. I'm going to go Cavs in 6. I think they learned a lot of the lessons, and I think this is like diet Knicks when you're playing the Magic, because they don't have, I think, a lot of the issues that the Cavs really faced, and I know everyone wants to focus on the offense. The offense was terrible. We all know the offense was terrible. People say, well, the defense was really good. If you look at the defensive rating for the playoffs, they were like the best. No, they weren't the best defense. They sucked. They were awful. It's just the Knicks sucked too. So I think the thing that you have you have to like about the series with the Magic is that they don't have the Jalen Brunson. Mm-hmm. They have, I think we all know Paolo Banchero is a very gifted scorer. I know that the Cavs don't have a ton of wings, but I think there's not that one guard that you're going to really bend your defense in a way that is unnecessary to stop. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big help for the Cavs, because we look at the team like the Magic. They were 8th in offensive rebounding percentage this season, which is really good. It's not the Knicks. The Knicks were first, but it's really good. But a lot of the Knicks rebounds came from being out of position, and I don't think the Cavs shouldn't be out of position the same way against a team that doesn't have the same perimeter ball dominant guard. So I think that it's going to make it a little easier, and I think it's going to make people think that the Cavs solved all of their issues that the Knicks threw at them last year, and I think a lot of those issues haven't been solved, but I think enough of them have been addressed that the Cavs can overcome this series.
Yeah, the type of shot creator that Banchero is, and he's a gifted player, it's just different than the type of perimeter shot creation that you get from Brunson. So there's going to be some differences there, and I'm really excited to break it down, because I think the similarities and the subtle differences make this a very interesting challenge for the Cavs. They talked all summer about how much they took that Knicks series to heart and wanted to fix everything that went wrong. Their roster was constructed almost specifically to address all of that. Now, the potential loss of Dean Wade, we have no idea if he's going to play or not. I wouldn't bet on it. Yeah, it doesn't sound good, but who knows? That's going to hurt, because you lose your best wing defender, your big wing defender at least. So I will be cautious this time, because I was also banging that Cavs in 5 drum last year. I will say the Magic fans so far on Twitter, they've been delightful. They've been very respectful. So hopefully that continues after game 1.
Except for the ones that have posted clips from 2009. Sorry.
Well, that's a different.
Those people need to go. They all need to leave.
They had their moment. They're holding on to it. It's okay.
That was a moment where the NBA should have been scripted. We could have got LeBron and Kobe, but instead, think about how much changes if the Cavs win that series. The Cavs win that series. I think they match up better. That team was kind of built to match up with the Lakers, and I think, that Lakers team was really good, but I would like the Cavs' chances in that series. And let's say the Cavs get past the Magic. They beat the Lakers in the finals. What's the decision? There is no decision. LeBron says, I'm just going to be here forever. The Cavs just roll through the NBA for years. They have 7 championships. LeBron is playing
Darius Garland, who? Colin Sexton,
Darius Garland, who?
We don't know anything about that.
Exactly. So it's just, the Magic, they destroyed everything. And after the Magic series, the Cavs kind of threw out everything that worked. They said, we got to get Shaq because Dwight Howard beat us up. They kind of changed their philosophy in that they were kind of embracing a more spaced out game in a way that teams in 2009 weren't. And then instead they said, we need to get big, we need to get physical. And then they just got bullied by the Celtics, who shouldn't have bullied them. So it's just, really, that series changed everything. So
I'm in on Jackson rewriting history off the cuff.
Exactly.
Just going
Thank
for
you.
it.
Yeah, that was
but
unplanned.
hey, it was worth it. Sometimes you gotta go off. Sometimes you gotta ISO.
Yeah.
But to wrap this up, I don't want to overlook the Magic. I don't think they're a pushover. I think there's a good chance they turn this into a rock fight, much like we saw last year. I'm gonna say Cavs in 6. I think this series could go a lot of different ways. I really wouldn't be surprised by almost any outcome. So I'm gonna say Cavs in 6 tentatively, and we're gonna see how much they learned from that Knicks series.
I think the only thing that would surprise me if either team swept. I think Cavs in 4 or Magic in 4 would both be surprising for very different reasons. I think Cavs in 5, you're like, okay, the Cavs put it together. Magic in 5, you're like, oh yeah, we should have seen this coming. This is the same team, So it's like you can see all of that. You can see Magic in 7. I kind of almost don't see Cavs and Magic in 7 just because I feel like if the Cavs figured it out, they're going to win in 5 or 6. And I feel like if the Cavs didn't figure it out, they're going to lose in 5 or 6. So I kind of would be surprised in 7, but I wouldn't be surprised any result in 5 and 6.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. I think it's almost going to be like games 2 and 3 of last year, where it looked like the Cavs figured it out in game 2, and then game 3 rolls around, and it's like, oh no, New York got it. And every game after that, even though some of them did get competitive for stretches, it's like New York figured out how to beat us. I think we're going to see that in this series, one way or the other. Either Cleveland is going to figure it out around game 2 or 3, or the Magic are going to be in the driver's seat.
One thing we gotta put more stock in game 1 than we did last year, because I think last year we said the Cavs will make adjustments, and it turns out they didn't. So and I think we put a little too much stock in game 2. I think like the home team in game 2 after they lost game 1 is like an unbelievable percentage of like it's like basically it's like the 2015 Cavs. They beat the Hawks, but most other teams, they lose in that situation. So, yeah, don't put too much stock if the Cavs lose game 1. Don't put stock in game 2. If the
LeBron James is not on the team anymore. Right. He doesn't.
2018
Donovan
Raptors.
And Darius Garland are not testing out that game 1. They got to bring it right away.
Right. So that's where I think we want to. I feel like we'll get a good sense of what's happening after game 1. Like, I think if the Cavs roll in game 1 and then kind of keep that up in game 2, I think it's like, okay, this is the Cavs team that we expected. But if the Cavs, do what they did last year and lose a tight one in game 1, I think all those problems are going to come up again.
I agree. And like I said, we're going to be talking about this all throughout the week. One thing that I will briefly mention right now is that I do think, and as far as adjustments go, maybe the Cavs have more options on their bench this year, but we're going to get into that because the Magic also have a very good bench. That's all for.
I'm going to push back there because it's like the Cavs, like the adjustment is, they should play like Sam Merrill more. And that should be a game 1 thing where it's like, you got to play Sam Merrill because you're going against a team that two of the slowest paced teams in the league. The pace naturally slows in the playoffs too. It's going to be a half court game. Sam Merrill's really his only plus skill is creating shots in the half court and making it really difficult. Even last year, if we think about what the best things that the Cavs did, it's when they kind of used Jetty with those screens with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. And eventually, that really worked in game 2. And then eventually the Knicks said, Jetty, why don't we just let him shoot? But you can't do that the same way with Sam Merrill. But that's one of the things that is really helpful for the Cavs because when you have 2 bigs, whenever you bring the big to set a screen, they're going to double. So, we know what this series is going to need.
That's fair. I was more so thinking of the Danny Green type of situation where it's like you couldn't go to Danny Green, you couldn't go to Robin Lopez, even Lamar Stevens. Now you got Sam, you got Niang, you got even Marcus Morris, even Tristan Thompson. They're more playable than what we had last year. If
you're going to Marcus Morris or Tristan Thompson,
you're already
waiving
them. Have to.
Tristan,
I don't know, but Morris
Tristan should only play if you're in foul trouble, and that's not really an adjustment. That's kind of we're in foul trouble. What else are we supposed to do? If Marcus Morris plays, it means
Niang is going about what I'm expecting.
But if Niang goes about what you expect, the solution is play Isaac Okoro more. get Max Strus more minutes at the 4.
It might be tough, but we'll see. We'll see. That's all for this episode of In or Out. Thank you for watching. As I said, stay tuned. You don't want to miss Jackson's reaction when Sam Merrill plays just 8 minutes throughout the entire series. And with all that being said, go Cavs.
I agree. Go Cavs. Brian, how many minutes should Sam Merrill play?